Hey, do you remember that prophecy that guy gave about Donald Trump and how he saw him like shot and his ear drum, was blown out and there was blood in the side of his face and hit his ear and he saw him down on his face and he was going to survive and then the Patriots were going to show up. Trump was going to be swept in by a Patriot surge in the White House. And then he said a picture of him holding his head in his hands. Can't believe it. Just like when COVID came and wiped out his beautiful gains in America. Now he's got an economic crisis going on, like a financial meltdown taking place. Well, I don't forget those things, do you? No, you better believe it's interesting. So let me ask you a question. Then Donald Trump goes to the BRICS nations. That's 23 nations. Brazil, Russia, India, China, big economies. And he tells them, you guys, you BRICS nations who want to go off the dollar, you want to de-dollarize, you want to attack our financial system. If you do that, then I'm going to give 100% tariffs on everything you've got. In other words, it'll crush the economy globally. And then Putin says, President Trump should think soberly because that could backfire on the United States in a big way. Folks, I'm going to go there with an expert right now about the BRICS nations. What happens if Trump gets pushed? What's he really going to negotiate? How stable is China? Can they afford to play a game of chicken economically? I don't think they can. But that's all covered in this broadcast. And that's the reason why you have to if you haven't done it yet, at least get my report on gold, because the Bible says in Haggai, during a time of global shaking of everything that can be shaken will be shaken. The Lord says, well, the silver's mine, the gold is mine, and I'm going to build still a glorious house. Go to lancewallnau.com/gold. If you're on Instagram or you're on Facebook, just put the word Birch, B-I-R-C-H, in there, and you get the 23-page special report. And if you got an IRA, you got the retirement account, you might want to be rolling it over and putting it into silver and gold. Well, I'm telling you, the silver and the gold is mine, the Bible says, and I think it's a stable store of value regardless of how paper currencies fluctuate. And now we're going to go into my interview with this expert. And Philip Patrick is going to talk to us about what's going on economically. Once again, lancewallnau.com/gold. Take action now and get a hold of that report. Don't wait till later. You'll have peace of mind if you do it. All right, let's go. Well, here we are with a very important, I would dare say, almost a prophetic conversation, which is going to be unusual for my guest, Philip Patrick from Birch Gold. But I have some questions for the expert, and it has to do with what he believes is going to happen with Trump's threat to impose 100% tariffs on the BRICS nations. For those of you that aren't following the story, we've been really for, a year and a half, 2 years, bracing ourselves for this movement to de-dollarize. And, Biden's administration and these flat-footed political types, they're ignorant. They don't know how. It's almost like they're deaf, dumb, and blind when it comes to understanding what to do proactively to take care of America. Trump, on the other hand, isn't even in office. And he says, I want to put a stop to this nonsense right now. You guys want to build your own currency? You want to be enemies of the dollar? The dollar's what I represent. Then I'm finished with you. 100% tariffs on all of you. It's crazy. I mean, it's like a script out of Hollywood. But I got to ask Philip, what does that practically mean? And what's going on in the international community when Trump says it? Philip, welcome back to the Lance Wallnau Show.
Thank you for having me, Lance.
What was going through your head when you read Trump's response on dealing with BRICS as elegantly and as subtly as he did?
Look, by the way, it was Steve Bannon that initially showed me that text message, and my response was, I'm glad they're finally addressing it. Under Biden, we heard nothing. In fact, what they said was this was a natural tendency to diversify. So they didn't even suggest it was a problem. Trump knows better, right? And it's one of his first priorities to try and address, which for me is very, very encouraging. Now, in terms of 100% tariffs disincentivizing the BRICS, I'm not sure it will work. Look, we got to think about why, the BRICS started to de-dollarize in the first place. First of all was obviously devaluation of the dollar, but the second piece was weaponization, using the dollar as a financial weapon. I think ultimately using trade as a threat reinforces the idea that the dollar is a yoke and that nations may longer term may be better off not wearing it. However, one thing we know about President Trump is he uses these aggressive stances as a negotiating tactic. And it may be just that: stock plant an aggressive stake in the ground and work back from there. That being said, I think longer term, to really incentivize the BRICS to start re-dollarizing again, we're going to need carrots as well as sticks. And I think carrots will come in the form of a stable US dollar. That's going to be the key longer term, Lance.
So the stable US dollar, what are the factors that create the stability for the dollar?
Listen, I mean, not running massive deficits, huge wasteful spending that we've seen under the Biden administration has certainly contributed to devaluation of the dollar and has made the argument much easier for the BRICS, right? Why hold dollars if they're losing value and can be used as a weapon? So stabilizing the dollar, curbing the spending is going to be key. Now, I know it's a priority for the administration. They're talking a tough game in that respect. Scott Bessent said that the national debt's going to be a priority. Same with Elon Musk and Vivek as well. So curbing the spending is going to be key. It's going to be a tough task to do, given how high debt service and other expenses are. But that's going to be interesting to see how that shapes out. I don't think we're going to stop running deficits. So the hope will be that the Trump administration, I believe they will, by the way, will spend more productively than the Biden administration. That won't be hard, of course, but that's going to be key.
Yeah, that won't be hard. And I do believe that Vivek and Elon are going to be able to serve up some real red meat in terms of government waste, which is going to be very hard for the establishment to defend once they get their claws into it and they start using, and social media starts covering it. But I am concerned that most people do miss this, and that is the fact that, to an extent, when we got involved with this stupid war with Ukraine, and then we decided to freeze out assets of Putin and basically disrupt the. I guess we took our corporations out, and we demonstrated to the world that America will use economics as part of its military domination, and as if it was a bad idea. And that was the first time that I heard the reality of the fact that other countries do not want to be in a relationship with an economy where you're going to use it to weaponize it in statecraft. So I get that. At the same time, I also don't like the fact that, as Trump would be the first to say, why in the world is he supporting all these countries and nations as a generous sugar daddy, and they're working against us and looking for our financial fall? He's not the kind of guy that's going to be stuck with that bill. So when he talks about trade wars or taking them on, I know that most Americans don't think past the fight bravado. What is the practical meaning of a trade war? Explain to my audience what that actually looks like.
Of course. So, look, the most common response to tariffs, as one might expect, are retaliatory tariffs. And they can be at high levels, like 100%, numbers that President Trump's throwing around at the moment. To put that into perspective, the current average tariff is just 1.5%. So retaliatory tariffs are just going to make competing in the global market a little bit more difficult. Now, they're designed to address a trade deficit. And we have a trade deficit at the moment, but we're still major importers of many products, right? Crude and refined petroleum, car and aviation parts, industrial equipment. So obviously these industries would suffer shorter term. On top of that, as we know, tariffs raise consumer costs, right? Shorter term, those costs are passed on to the consumer, so they can be inflationary. Now, like I said, the aggressive stance from Trump could be nothing more than a negotiating strategy, right? But the thing we have to understand about tariffs is they work, right? The tariffs Trump put on China in his first administration in 2016 led to a huge increase in factory construction, up 242%. But it takes time to materialize. And my primary concern is simply that the threat itself, whether intended seriously or not, reinforces this case for global de-dollarization simply because fewer nations are transacting in dollars, both buying less from and selling less to the US, and ultimately it will weaken the dollar's position as the primary reserve currency. But that's if Trump really pushes this path. And like I said, right now it may be a negotiating strategy. So we'll have to see how things shape out. One thing's for sure, I think we're going to see some volatility. Ultimately, that's what these guys are trying to achieve. There's an element of creative destruction. The system is broken, and in order to fix it, we're going to have to destroy it and rebuild it. And during that time, we'll see market volatility, we'll see economic volatility, and I think we'll continue to see precious metals climb.
All right, so what I'm hearing is we can expect to see a period of instability. My guess is, and this is just my, but I found my guesses to be actually pretty accurate. That's why you take in a lot of information, your intuition starts to work like a computer. My sense is Russia was so disconnected from the U.S. and from the West because of the war that they're rather bold in saying it's time we just started breaking with America. China, on the other hand, is codependent. We're like a bad relationship. They need us to buy from them, and we need them. So we've created this kind of sick relationship where we can't afford to disrupt the pharmaceutical supply, et cetera. But I think China is not going to want to push this. And if China, and I don't think India, with Modi and his relationship with Trump, I see where Trump might be the one guy for a little while that can get away with saying, come on, you guys aren't serious about this, and have the issue back off. But it feels like we're in one of those moments when we have to say to ourselves, how do we navigate the turbulence? You mentioned precious metals. How can my audience be proactive? I understand that there's this strange phenomena going on where the value of the dollar is going up and its comparison with gold is slightly out of kilter, but the stability of the dollar is so vulnerable and our markets are so, I'm hearing every day something really shocking, Patrick, and that's statements about where America's bankrupt. I mean, we're running on borrowed time. And with $35 trillion worth of debt, I sure don't want the music to stop while we're walking around the chairs. So how can people protect themselves?
I mean, look, first of all, that was a very good summary, as we should expect. But look, I'm very confident that I know President Trump is the man to lead us through tough times. And we need that sort of personality today more so than ever before. There are times in history when a man comes into office and he's representative of change, and President Trump is that man. However, we have to remember what he's inherited. Yes, I agree, China and India are going to want to make deals with President Trump, but he's limited by 4 years. And these dictators, not India, but China, are thinking long beyond the next election cycle in the United States. So I would say to your viewers, being preemptive is key, and I think we have an opportunity to do it. I would encourage all of your viewers to get the information, start reading why to invest in precious metals, how to invest in precious metals. The fundamentals of the economy today are the same as they were a month ago, right? We have better leadership now starting in January, but the problems are still there, and we have a tough storm to weather. And I think precious metals are the best way to weather an inflationary storm, a currency storm, and a market storm. And President Trump has a very tough job on his hands.
I want everyone to go to lancewallnau.com/gold and get the report that Philip Patrick is referring to. lancewallnau.com/gold. If you're on Instagram or Facebook, just put the word Birch down, and that's all you're going to need, and we'll be able to take it from there. When we look at the possibility of volatility, I mean, do you think that the debt situation what's the danger with this debt? I mean, is there a moment when the music actually stops globally and we have a moment of where other countries are insolvent and the ripple effect starts to hit the global economy? I worry about France right now, what's happening there. We're all at very much interconnected global market. And if France goes down, then I'm looking at the complex banking. The second thing I want to say is I worked with a guy who was involved with Milton Friedman and the establishment of the China integration into the West. And he has said to me repeatedly, he said, Lance, you could talk about de-dollarizing all you want. How do these other countries determine the value of the currency? It's all back with gold. He says the dollar and gold is still there. He says they have to figure out the value of gold in terms of dollars. He said the dollar's there. It's not going to go away, and gold isn't going to go away. So he was giving me a rather interesting argument that that everything has to still be figured out in terms of some denominator, and the dollar is the present way of evaluating that. So I guess it's a two-part question. One,
Yeah.
I don't want people to think, oh, well, forget about gold. We don't need that, because actually it's what every other country right now is backing their new currency on. So it's not like it's going to be, if BRICS comes along, then you're actually smart if you're ready for it, aren't you, with gold?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's why central banks around the world are setting records for gold buying in this climate. So a couple of points there. One is debt. You mentioned France. What's happening in France is very similar to what happened in the UK under Liz Truss. Essentially, we have the Bodden vigilantes now coming out in full force, and we face the same risk here in the United States. People have to understand that what President Trump has inherited in terms of a debt problem is almost insurmountable. So we're talking about stopping running deficits. It's going to be very difficult to do it. If you removed all discretionary spending, 100% of it, the budget would just be balanced, right? So essentially, in order to balance the budget, the Republicans are going to have to not spend at all, which is not realistic, right? There's two ways out of a deficit problem. One is austerity, and the other is growth. Trump is a growth guy. He's going to grow us out of the problem. So the gamble here is that GDP growth will start to outpace debt growth. But it is an uphill battle. Since the 70s, debt growth has averaged 8.5% a year annual growth. GDP has averaged 3%, right? So in order to stop running deficits, they're essentially going to have to triple the GDP of the United States in a short space of time, which is going to be very tough. So what the hope is, in my mind, under Trump, he revitalizes the economy, he curbs spending to a degree, and he lays the groundwork and sows the seeds so that we can, in the future, start to outperform debt. But I don't see it happening in 4 years. And then the hope is, in the meantime, while we continue to run deficits, the world doesn't continue to run away from the US dollar. In terms of gold's position, gold is very important, right? We don't use it to support our currency, but we use it. Central banks around the world hold gold as a currency hedge, and that's why the BRICS are using it. Whoever you spoke to was absolutely correct. The dollar is still the global currency and will be for the foreseeable future, short to medium term. However, it looks like the wheels are in motion. If we continue to run deficits, the dollar continues to devalue, the argument for the dollar as the global reserve currency over time will start to weaken. The key to a global reserve currency is stability, and the dollar is still the most stable currency. It is the best of a bad bunch, but if we continue to run down this path, there will be other currencies over time that show more stability. The argument for the dollar will start to wane, and then we lose the official status again. So
Clear enough, brother. Clear enough. Folks, I can't stress this enough. If you've got retirement money, you have money that you want to put into a stable place at the right price right now. Precious metals is something to look at, not just gold, but silver also. And because it has its application in science, technology, engineering, there's a demand for its use in a unique way. So go to lancewallnau.com/gold, get the report. On Instagram and Facebook, just put the word Birch down, and I'll send you like a 21-page information kit. And knowledge is power. That's why I always like to talk to my experts, and Philip Patrick is one of my favorites. Philip, thank you for the extra time you gave us. Sorry for eating up your clock there, but we love to talk to you, brother.
thank you, Lance.
See you again. Well, listen, folks, you know, and with Donald Trump, like, who knows what's going to happen with the Middle East? I mean, what fascinates me is his tweet diplomacy. It just cracks me up. Everyone works through a State Department. Everyone works through some kind of information giving that they do. But in the case of Donald Trump, he puts it out there via a text thread. So we're going to have to come back and talk about the Middle East in a little bit and see exactly when Trump says all hell is going to come down on the Middle East. And then Syria has an upending. I sure don't want to have the Middle East become an intrusion into the stability of Trump's already precarious return to office. We'll be back in a minute to talk about that. We're entering a period of time that has increased hostility against people of faith. It's a time when Christians are going to be tested on a moral, physical, psychological, and even a financial basis. I'm here to remind you that God is the one who has blessed you thus far, and he will take care of you in the future. You have a divine responsibility, however, to see trouble and prepare yourself. For example, with record inflation eating away at the value of the U.S. dollar, the savings in your retirement account is in danger of slipping away. I recommend diversifying your 401k or IRA out of paper assets and into physical gold. And the best way to do that is with a gold IRA from Birch Gold Group. Now that includes no penalties, there's no taxes when you transfer current retirement funds into Birch Gold. To see how it works, I want you to go to lancewallnau.com/Birch and get your free info kit, and you'll be glad that you did. Let's talk about government efficiency. I mean, because Elon Musk and Vivek, they're our hope. Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope. We're hoping these guys are going to be able to make a case. It's amazing when I watch the liberal apparatus of the machine on the Hill that belittles their efforts or warns people about them because they're afraid they're going to cut into what? Starving kids a school lunch when you got a bloated $35 trillion money slush fund destroying the goose that lays the golden egg. Well, let me tell you what I'm talking about. Take a look at this image here. My staff just showed me. This is Elon Musk's latest tweet. By the way, you want to go to my Twitter account, Lance Wallnau, where you can see all of what I'm doing here today is right there on Lance Wallnau on Twitter. And I do respond to people if you go there and ask me to respond to you, I will. Why are we doing this? When our own country is so deeply in debt, Elon asks, logically, it's the Department of Government Efficiency. Doge, is that what it is, Carl? Pronounced Doge? The United States gives more aid to foreign countries than the next 9 countries combined. Where exactly is that money going? How is it being spent? It's paying off people. It's lining the pockets of somebody else who does a little bit of this or does a little bit of that for what, the CIA or something? The largest donors of humanitarian aid worldwide in 2023. You got France at 500 million, Sweden 400 million, Canada 577 million, Norway, Japan 68 million. I don't know what the heck the Central Emergency Response Fund is. That's somebody's. That's stupid. They should have that should be a nation, or the UK or the UN. United Kingdom 700 million. I don't hope I'm not boring you with this. This is your money. You're going to listen to what I'm about to tell you. Germany, 2 billion. The European Commission, there's the EU, 2 billion. The United States of America, 9.4 billion. Now, are they including in that aid to Ukraine? Because if that isn't in there, then in addition to that, you've got the military aid to Ukraine, which would put it up to like around 15 billion. Anyway, shocking. These guys, they can claw it back. If anybody can, the Avengers can do it. Our Avenger team, let me read this to you. This comes in from, by the way, like my tinsel on my desk. Do you see the red? Are you guys getting the red? Pull back a little bit. So look at that lovely, I've got poinsettias. Oh boy. It's Sturge 10 outrageous taxpayer-funded higher education. $1 trillion of our bloated budget could be just cut off if we had the courage and the will in America to get rid of the federal government Department of Education. Let the states have their own Department of Education. But you don't need a federal government out there to control and crush and manipulate the slush fund. So let me read you some of the Department of Education funded research projects. You ready for this? This will really warm the cockles of your heart. Gambling for pigeons. That's right. $500 million to researchers in Portland, Oregon, to explore a token-based economy where pigeons are taught to gamble with slot machines. The study gave pigeons tokens where they could earn, accumulate, spend, or gamble on slot machines. Now, somehow, this research is going to be beneficial in the future. Chimps throwing feces. Here's one. The U.S. National Institute of Health spent $592,000 at Emory University in Atlanta to explore why it is that chimpanzees throw their poop. Another $117,000 was necessary to conclude that most chimps are actually right-handed poop throwers. It would be funny if it wasn't so sick. $500,000 to discover the poop-throwing tendencies of chimpanzees. Oh, I'll tell you what. I've always wanted to know that. How about the drunken finches? $5 million to the Oregon Health and Science University to study if finches slurred their songs when alcohol was in their systems. And they sang faster with amphetamines, by the way. All right, what do we got? We got bees on coke. Look, I didn't even know I was heading there by accident. Bees on cocaine. Aren't you glad you're watching today? You need to know this because over $250,000 was spent by the National Institute of Health to study the impact of cocaine on honeybees. The bees are more likely. Guess what? Bees are more likely to dance when they're high. Well, I'm glad we found that out. I'm just going to give you one more, okay? This is what we got to cut. We have to cut. Here's the situation. Now, there's a logic behind this. See, they have to ask for these grants, and the grants have a certain amount. And you have to qualify for that certain amount. So they create stupid, dumb things in order to qualify to meet their allocation of what money is available in the slush fund. So in other words, you come up with stupid stuff because the money will come to you if you just have something. The National Science Foundation funded $1.3 million to make shrimp run on tiny treadmills at the College of Charleston, South Carolina. Yes, indeed. Tiny treadmill, little teeny weeny treadmills, and cracking the whip. There was a lobster cracking the whip, and the little shrimpies. It's like a cartoon. Oh, what a way to make a living, Charlie. $500,000 study to see if selfies really make you happy. That was the University of California. That was a 4-week study. Found that taking selfies boosted participants' moods. Well, if I had my camera here, I'd take a selfie now, but Chelsea has my camera, so much for that moment. The secret language of French butchers. The National Endowment for the Humanities funded $30,000 for a study in Connecticut to research a secret, highly endangered language spoken by Parisian butchers. Well, I'm glad that we're not losing that. I hold it. Wait a second. I hate to waste the whole broadcast on this, but I got to tell you, $3.6 million at Bowdoin College in Maine. The funding went to experiments on what makes a goldfish feel sexy. Research discovered that when given sex steroids, male goldfish exhibited more social behavior and they swarmed closer to the female counterparts. The National Cancer Institute funded nearly $7 million to researchers at Stanford University to build an AI toilet. The toilet's equipped with cameras to scan the user's waist and unique. I'm not even going to read this. The contours of their butts are being chronicled by AI. You see, do you think any of this is possibly misspent money? These guys are going to have a circus, and I want them to have, I'm taking time right now because I want everyone to feel duly outraged at what's been going on while the parents have not been home. Hey, by the way, speaking of parents coming home, play video feed 8 on our X feed here. Look who's back. He's not even officially here yet. And the whole world's lining up to shake Trump's hands. Play video 8. Who's that guy? Is that Germany? Lining up. El Presidente. And this is when he's at Notre Dame, by the way. The bells of Notre Dame are ringing out because Donald Trump and all these guys are there. Look at this. For those of you listening to the podcast, we have the entire entourage of Germany, France, Italy, Francis Macron, Italy, Malone. Trump is selling a cologne. By the way, it rhymes, but he is doing that. He's selling a cologne off of this event. All right, that's enough. These are boring political figures anyway. Who cares about who they are? You can turn that off. That stimulating little segment there that I'm sure all of you wanted to see. That's basically Trump showing up in Notre Dame. But the fact of the matter is, they can't function without him. And he's not even in office yet. And this is what he's doing. He's already in charge of stuff. Now, I got 2 minutes here, and I hesitate to let's jump in on this. Let's jump right in on the Middle East, because we're going to come back in a second, and I want to dive in on what's going on in Syria. And did you read Trump's tweet? Let's go there. 1 minute and 47 seconds. Everyone is talking about the hostages who are being held so violently and inhumanly against the will of the entire world in the Middle East. Trump says, but it's all talk, no action. Please let this truth, capitalized, serve to represent that if the hostages are not released prior to January 20th, 2025, the day that I proudly assume office as President of the United States, there will be all hell to pay in the Middle East. And for those in charge who perpetrated these atrocities against humanity, those responsible will be hit harder than anybody has been hit in the long and storied history of the United States of America. Release the hostages now. You don't want to miss tomorrow's broadcast when I'm going to deal with the fall of Assad and I have a cartoon in my hand explaining the complexity of the Middle East. You know, there's more than one scholar that says the Antichrist rises up out of Syria. And right now, Syria's terrorist takeover is probably the tribal fountain out of which that eventual man is going to come out of. I'm going to talk more about that in the next broadcast, but I can't do it now because we're flat out of time. In the meantime, remember, if you've got birch gold, you've done the report and you've read that analysis, you understand why precious metals, silver, precious metals, and gold becomes a smart play for you while you're watching the instability of world markets. You've got some retirement money. You've got some stuff that's stable and only going up because the Bible says at the end times, the silver is mine and the gold is mine. Remember that. All right, we're going to talk to you again tomorrow. God bless you. This is Lance Wallnau signing off.
Did you enjoy this latest episode? Please remember to share it with your friends, because the more knowledge you have, the better equipped you are to navigate the world.